A Wild Friday appears, and it's super effective. Later today on the Cultaholic Twitch stream, it is me and you and live calls at twitch.tv/Cultaholic. Love You Bye Fridays returns, and we are taking your calls live in the Cultaholic studio. What could possibly go wrong? Anyway, enough of that. Here is your wrestling news. The first reactions to WWE ThunderDome are in. A WWE Hall of Famer's return has been scrapped, and we have the reasons why. And the original plans for Mike Tyson in AEW have been revealed. We'll talk about it in a bit. Last night we got our first proper look at WWE ThunderDome, the most ambitious video conferencing combat event since Matthew versus a bear on Chat Roulette. So much blood, not enough bandwidth. So far, the reaction has been pretty positive on the whole, but we'll talk through what went down during the test broadcast they did yesterday. So a select number of people were invited to log in and be a part of ThunderDome ahead of its proper premiere on SmackDown tonight. Now, we had a conversation on the Cultaholic Wrestling podcast with Fernando Escobar, who is the host of the Half K podcast. He was one of those that was invited to be a part of it. You can listen to my chat with Fernando on the Cultaholic Wrestling podcast. You can download it wherever you get your podcast from right now. But Fernando said that he was surprised by the lack of vetting that even went on in this testing process. Everybody was just sort of checked in. You have to line up your face with some red dots so you're in the centre, but nobody was really asked about AEW merchandise or whether they keep their clothes on. It was quite a simple, straightforward process to log in. A lot of people had about an hour's worth of delay waiting for everything to get going, and during that time they had a loop of celebrities at WWE shows accompanied by the sound of Flow Rider's Welcome to My House, which is, it sounds a bit like purgatory, that. When everything got up and running, though, 3 matches were shown to the closed circuit audience. I guess that's what they are, maybe. We had Jake Atlas versus Tahuti Miles. We had Jesse Cameo teaming with Indy Hartwell to take on Casey Catanzaro and Caden Carter, and Ridge Holland versus Mansoor. Since there might not be another show in Saudi Arabia, I guess you've got to get that one match in for Mansoor before the year is out. One thing that was noticed by these test matches was the entrances, that everybody came out to different wrestlers' music. Like I think Ridge Holland and Jake Atlas both came out to Braun Strowman's music and pyro and video, and we had Casey Catanzaro and Caden Carter coming out to Asuka's video and pyro and effects and such like that. So this was, as well as it being just a test of how the in-ring action works, obviously they were running through the test of some of the video production elements that were going to come into play for ThunderDome. So it was a bit of a jarring experience to see people like Jake Atlas coming out to Braun Strowman's music, but that was probably why. The one picture that you may have seen a lot of that circulated online is the hard cam, where you just seem to have like this never-ending wall of faces staring at the ring. And it's quite a jarring image, I think. Big E had the tweet of the night about this, by the way. He just shared a gif of Guess Who, which is kind of what it looks like, to be perfectly honest. That was probably the most jarring shot of the night. From what I've seen, anything else, like around the ring, cameras off to the side, some of the drone stuff that they use as well, all looked really good. It was just the hard camera where your eye seemed constantly drawn to the constant changing faces around the arena. Now, the one thing that Fernando said was there was a lot of repeat of people, but obviously because it's only a small number of people who are at the test, chances are there'll be thousands more faces that will fill out those screens all along where the seats would normally be. So chances are it might not be as jarring when we get to SmackDown tonight. I guess we will find out, but that is some of the bits of how it went down. We also had some commentary on the night, a random little bit of wrestling curiosity for you here. We had 2 producers who were there who came out to different wrestlers' music doing their entrances and stuff. Again, just testing the entrances. And it was these 2 random producers who did commentary for the 3rd match. So there'll be footage online. somewhere, no doubt. So it's a random wrestling curiosity. If you want to watch Ridge Holland versus Mansoor with some bizarre commentary attached to it in front of lots of webcams. What a weird drug 2020 truly is. And then the tests ended and everyone said thank you and signed off. A few people I've heard said that they stayed on the call a bit longer and they could hear discussions on how to deal with anybody wearing AEW t-shirts and things like that. So that's very much a concern for WWE, is AEW t-shirts or no t-shirts. I think those are the two evils that you are fighting when you come to doing shows in front of lots of webcams. We'll see how they combat that as we get to SmackDown tomorrow night. But overall, the reaction's been pretty positive amongst those who were there and experiencing the whole thing. My 2 cents, for all it's worth, the only issue I think is the hard cam. The hard cam looks like there's a lot going on. It's very busy and it draws away from what's happening in the ring. I don't know how you can adjust that. Maybe have the hard cam up a little bit higher and a little bit lower. So like push it up top and then to dip it so you're not seeing all these faces staring down at the ring. It's a bit weird. But otherwise, I think it looked fine. I think it looked very flashy. If this is going to be the normal for a while, then we'll just have to tweak it and get used to it a little bit, won't we? Backstage, the mood seems really good right now in WWE as they get set for this residency at Amway Center that starts tonight. WrestleVotes tweeted out, source in Orlando says spirits are high as they've been in some time. Many Backstage Road employees who have been off are returning, and the intrigue of ThunderDome has the staff excited. The energy this weekend from talent performing should be off the charts. So positive vibes coming out of WWE ahead of ThunderDome. You can find out more about it and see more photos of what went down at cultaholic.com. Elsewhere, a WWE Hall of Famer was set to make a big return this year. Paul Ellering was talking on the Two-Man Power Trip podcast and said that there were plans for him to return to the side of the Authors of Pain. Now, if we go back to earlier on in the year, we were reporting here at Cultaholic that the plan was that Seth Rollins would be off WWE TV post-WrestleMania following his loss to Kevin Owens. This would therefore have led to the dissolving of the greater good. It would have left Akam and Razor without anything going on. So a Paul Ellering return would have been perfectly timed if that was going to be the case. However, hasn't panned out like that. Paul Ellering on the Two-Man Power Trip podcast said that there were 2 things that prevented him coming back, and that was the COVID-19 outbreak, which has seen a lot of plans hit the wall pretty much in WWE, and Razor suffering a torn biceps injury in March. So we don't know when we'll see Razor back in action, but Authors of Pain have been really stop-starts since they got to the main roster, and not always the fault of their own. Hopefully, when things get relatively back to normal for them, we can see Paul Ellering in that role, because I think Paul Ellering was perfect for Akam and Razor in the Authors of Pain. Just a perfect fit for them when they were in NXT. And it was a lovely Paul Ellering promo. Watch the one he did at WrestleMania 8. I have returned! It was good. Some NXT bits for you now. There is a major creative change that we will see affect the programming going forward, I do believe. Dave Meltzer in Wrestling Observer Radio says that Joe Belcastro has left WWE. Joe Belcastro was one of the head writers for NXT, and he handed in his notice in the same week as Renee Young. Triple H was asked about this during the NXT conference call and said, as far as writing of NXT goes, we shift around a little bit. I won't necessarily comment on people that aren't necessarily talent for us, but we have a team that works with NXT that includes Shawn Michaels, Brian James and myself. So it's a group of ideas, a group and all the ideas all go through that. So not mentioning much about the absence of Belcastro, but from what I understand, he was a positive influence within the writing team. And when someone like that gets taken out, you expect some subtle changes to the programming. I mean, we talked a little bit on Wednesday how something felt a little bit different with the way the show has been written. I'm not saying that this is down to Joe going, but we'll see. We'll see what happens. In the same way that AEW has fallen foul of the B-ball, NXT is falling foul of the puck. as NHL playoffs have forced NXT to shift days. So the NXT episode for Wednesday, September 2nd is now happening on Tuesday, September the 1st at 8 p.m. Eastern, as a playoff game in the NHL is scheduled for that time. Now, the playoffs continue up until the start of October. I think they finish around the 4th. So it wouldn't surprise me if we see NXT moving at short notice again in weeks to come. AEW have had their schedule sort of thrown up as a result of the NBA, and NHL doing the same to NXT means that we might see some interesting ratings results coming out from both sides over the next few weeks. Just as we hit send on that NXT TakeOver 30 predictions video for the Cultaholic YouTube channel, an extra match was added to the card. Curse you, Triple H! We will see Finn Balor versus Timothy Thatcher as part of TakeOver 30 as a result of what went down at the end of Finn Balor's match with Velveteen Dream on Wednesday. Now, I wasn't sure whether or not this would be added to the card or whether or not it would be something they put on next week, but obviously they're keen to add this one to TakeOver, and I'm very intrigued. This is Timothy Thatcher, who has proven himself to be just great at that slow, bendy style of wrestling, World of Sport-esque, and then you got Finn Balor in there. It's going to be some sort of hybrid World of Sport monster when those two go at it, and yeah, I'm here for it. I'm here for it. And finally, for a Friday, do you want some original plans for Mike Tyson in AEW? Outside of the obvious of Mike Tyson will rip his shirt properly. Sammy Guevara was on AEW Unrestricted, and he shared some original plans for Iron Mike and his involvement with Inner Circle. He said the original plan was for Mike Tyson to knock me out, which I was all for. I remember people were coming up to me saying, just don't move, you'll be fine. I wasn't scared at all. I thought, even if he hits me and I wake up in a hospital, it's going to be a hell of a moment. What a story. Hey, Mike Tyson knocked me out. Who can say that? I don't know who really wants to say that, but if I'm going to get knocked out, what a guy to get knocked out by. They ended up changing it. I remember being in the ring, though, and I remember him and Henry and thinking, this is wild. We did the Double or Nothing, and now we're in the ring with Mike Tyson. This is nuts. So Sammy Guevara nearly got punched in the face by Mike Tyson. I'll leave a gap there for you to make your own jokes. And I will wish you a happy weekend. Stay safe. Love you, bye.